some opening. We have an eye, sort of a nostril, 2 teeth. One of the teeth has a small cavity. Close call, folks, but I think we got here just in time.
Presented by Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro. This is Anatomy of a Movie. In-depth discussions and breakdowns of various movie titles. And now that you've seen the movie, let the dissection begin.
And welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another Anatomy of a Movie. This week, under the dissection, Like Sunday, Like Rain, the latest feature by Frank Whaley. I'm John Comerford, joined in the studio by Marissa Serafini.
Hello, everyone.
Dimitri Panos.
Hello, movie fans.
And our very special guest star, the auteur himself, Mr. Frank Whaley. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so
It's an honor.
let me give you a
And I am an auteur.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you for
Inestimable.
saying that.
Absolutely.
That,
Well,
yeah.
this is your fourth feature. And
Not
I
to be
was-
confused with otter, the
Yeah.
animal otter.
No.
T-T-E-R. I'm an auteur, and otters are sort of a
But
creature
with
that live in water and
but with your
they're
acting
very,
talent,
they're
you
very
could-
industrious.
You could
which I am.
certainly play an otter, I guess.
I'm really upset with that remark.
I'm just saying that your acting ability
But for those
is so
for those
good.
casting directors out there, yes, I do play. I can play an otter.
Weren't you an otter in Spencer for Hire? If I remember.
I did play a small otter in Spencer for
Spencer for
Hire.
Hire.
Yeah, I was nominated for my first Emmy playing an otter.
Oh, I thought it was an auteur. I'm
Yes.
getting confused.
Yes.
John, look what you opened up.
I am an auteur.
Well, yes.
I was going to say a
this is-
Renaissance man as well.
If you made 4 indie films, you're an auteur. I mean,
Lord knows.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, one of the first things I wanted to ask you about, and I'm sure you've been asked a million times, but I don't know the answer because the title is so poetic. I just want to know how you arrived at Like Sunday, Like Rain.
I was trying to think of a title for my first film, which was ultimately called Joe the King. But when I was after I still had the title Pleasant View Avenue on that film. But that was the film being somewhat autobiographical. That was the street that I grew up on, and my mom still lives on. For those of you out there want to go and see my mom, drop by, throw something at her house. You can do that. No,
An otter, if you
Hopefully
have
something
Yes.
soft.
Yes, there's a family of otters probably living under that house. But I couldn't use that house. So I sat down at that time and was writing, just jotting down different titles that might be appropriate for that or suitable for that film. And I think, I'm not sure how I arrived at Like Sunday, Like Rain. I think there's the song Every Day is Like Sunday, which is Morrissey.
Smith's Morrissey.
Morrissey, yeah. And I'm, that song, which is sort kind of evocative of, I think, of Joe the King in some ways, in that Sundays are cloudy and silent and gray, and it was the melancholy that I felt from Every Day is Like Sunday. I thought, and so I kind of did a play on that, I think, Like Sunday, Like Rain. And when I was writing this script for Like Sunday, Like Rain, I came across that list and some notes and I thought that's a great title and it's sort of suits what I'm writing, and so I incorporated it into the story and being the piece of music that the young man is writing, and so that's really the story.
There you go. And so jumping off of that, because you also have talked about the impetus for this movie was that, I think if I read this correctly, you bumped into somebody you hadn't seen in a long time.
Yes.
And then that germ of that idea of the effect we have on each other, even though we were only with each other for a short time, was the beginning of this movie. Is that correct?
That's really, that was sort of when I started to think about this whole concept of, because Like Sunday, Like Rain, really, it's about these two people who, through a random set of circumstances, are brought together. And they're from completely different ends of the spectrum, socioeconomically and every other way. But lo and behold, they have so much in common. There's so much common ground there, and as they begin to figure that out, they become very, very close. And with me, I back in the 80s, I was broke and trying to be an actor, and there was a hotel worker strike, and I think I saw an ad in the Village Voice. They were looking for room service waiters at the Helmsley Palace to and they were paying something like $15 an hour plus tips, which was huge at that time. But you had to cross the picket line. It was an angry picket line. And so I went, and I had no experience as a room service waiter, being a room service waiter is really hard to do. You have to. It's all in the timing. Like if somebody orders, breakfast, you have to get it on. You have to get it on the table. They had these teapots that you had to heat up the teapots to 5,000 degrees.
So it's still hot by the time they get to the
hotel. But it was a fancy hotel, and I was in no way equipped for this job at all. The Helmsley Palace at that time was celebrities and rock stars and stuff like that up there, and I had never even been in a hotel in my life. And I remember one night somebody ordered. They said, "Go to the bar, get a bottle of Dom Perignon, bring it up to room, 3650." So I went up there and I brought I was pretending I knew all this stuff, but I didn't. I got up there and I had no idea how to open a bottle of champagne.
Wow.
And the guy was like, and I was like, "Oh," he said, "Could you?" The guy was like in there sitting at the thing. He said, "Oh, would you open it?" I said, "Oh, yeah," and I had no idea. There was the foil, and then
there's
a cage on there.
And he was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Just the bottle's broken. I think it's." I had no idea.
One of your early movies, by the way. But go ahead.
Yeah, and so and then he said, "Just give it to me," and so there was all kinds of that kind of thing happening. But in that period of time, I became friends with somebody, this guy who was from down south, and we had nothing really in common. Except we were both trying to be actors, and the only way I can really sum it up is to say that we formed a bond of
over that artistic endeavor and that idea.
Yeah, and he was a good waiter. He could
he just acted like a good waiter.
Yeah, well, he had done it before, and he could put the stuff together. He said, "Let me do." He helped me out a lot. And otherwise I would have been fired from that job on day one. But I was making $15 an hour, and I was flat. Dead broke. I was living with 8 Germans in the East Village. I had no idea. I didn't even know these people. I had to scrunch up like this next to the door, and that was $200 a month. I was like this, sleeping. And every once in a while, the guys would come in, tap me in the shoulder. "Are you sleeping?" "No, just please." So it was a horrible period. But anyway, this friend of mine, I finally did. There was Boom Boom Mancini, who was a famous boxer.
Nice, yeah, absolutely.
I brought up some tomato juice and some other things to his room.
To Boom Boom
Mancini's Boom Boom Mancini.
Absolutely.
And his female companion came out of the bathroom while I was setting because you had to do this whole thing with the table, and she just was wearing a robe and nothing else.
So Boom Boom and her Boom Boom.
I think at that point I hadn't seen a lot of nudity. I certainly didn't have seen that level, with all due respect, that level of nudity in my life.
That level of nudity.
It's good to be a waiter.
I mean, I like a slapstick fashion, slapstick, Keystone Cop, just spilled tomato juice all over the white carpet and his shoes. And so I was immediately fired. And I went back and I said, and they said, "Get out. And I said goodbye to my friend. I said, this is the day before cell phones and that. He lived in Forest Hills, Queens. I lived in Manhattan in the East Village, and we just lost touch. I moved out of the place I was in, so he had no way to get in touch with me, and we just life went on. And then somewhere in 2008, my wife and I were walking through Manhattan, and I bump into this guy. It turns out he was living on I was living on 23rd Street. He was living on 16th Street. And we
for 5 years, how long had it been?
8. Well, this was 22 years. 22 years later,
right.
And so I thought, but it was astounding because I bumped into him that we had been living so close to each other, and so that long story short, I thought this might be an interesting concept for a movie, and I've been thinking about these characters like the prodigy kid. And I just kind of put it all together. I put it all together, and my son is very smart, and he had a friend of his who was a chess master, would sit in Union Square Park in Manhattan on phone books and beat these old old guys. And he was kind of weird. He wasn't weird like that. He just was great at it. He was just, and I thought, so that was
part of it too.
I put that in there. Yeah. I mean, oftentimes it's a grab bag of things that come together, and it evolved. It evolved over. At one point, I was trying to get this film made, and at one point I completely changed the end of the film and made it a very violent kind of end.
Was that why because you were responding to other people's view of what the movie should be, or did you just take it on your own that you want to do something different?
I had been, it's hard to get a movie like this made because it's hard to read. It's hard to envision what a filmmaker has in mind because it's so subtle. It's a real subtle story. Not a lot happens, and it's all in the execution. And so people reading it were like,
I don't get it. What's happening?
It's not very dramatic, is it? And I would say, of course, it's dramatic. You're seeing. It's like for me, movies. A real inspiration for this movie was Paper Moon, Bogdanovich film, which it's because obviously it's a little.
It's a great movie, by the way. If you haven't seen it, please do see it.
Brilliant movie. It's the first movie I ever saw.
Oh wow,
Paper Moon. Yeah, and well, actually, The Adventures of the Great Waldo Pepper was the first movie I ever saw.
Okay. That one too.
Mention that, but Paper Moon was
the first one that really affected you for sure.
Yeah, was and it's so quiet and beautiful and funny and but it's also about this relationship between
the father and daughter.
Father and daughter. But she's
a grown up to some degree as well.
She's well beyond her father's
years.
Yeah, absolutely.
At some point, who's the adult and who's the child here, and who's taking care of who, and so I think that was in the back of my mind. But people reading it, they these days it's hard. It's hard to get it done, and so I thought
because you didn't force feed it. You wrote the script the way you saw it, so I'm sure there was a bunch of subtlety in it, right? I would imagine. So they had difficulty reading between those lines.
I just wrote the story that came to me. Right. I never try to think of plot points or what should happen or what they'll want to happen or what because I think that people have a hard time. Reading that and to a certain degree seeing that because you're kind of conditioned to think, well, wait a minute, maybe now why isn't this happening?
Yeah.
Why isn't he
Where's
beating
the
up
Act 23 beat?
He should beat up a bully now. So I thought, well, maybe I'll put a twist on it that they'll like, and it shows how little I know about what they like because I put this absurd ending on it.
I had read. Well, I was going to ask you about this because I found it to be hysterical, and to me, the way I interpreted it, and I'll read this in a sec, was. I found it that your sense of humor had come through. It was like, I'm sick and tired of people. Like, really? This is what you want me to do? And what I found was, in a misguided attempt to make it more accessible, you changed the ending, you rewrote it so the slacker boyfriend character comes back, shoots everybody before killing himself. The 12-year-old boy is left bleeding on the street. And you said, and you apparently you tell me if this is correct. You showed this to your wife, and she listened, and then she took the script and threw it in the garbage and said, "That's garbage." And I was laughing hysterically, going, "This guy's got a great sense of humor. He's so sick and tired of recommendations." So
it's true.
Fine.
So did that really happen? Did you really write that he comes back and kills his blood?
I did, and
that's a totally different kind of movie.
I'd like to say that I was being like ironic or whatever, but I really thought I got it. This is what'll happen, and and it's true. What it says there, I showed it to my wife. She said, "Are you out of your mind? What do you think? Why would you do that? I'm not going to let you do it. No, you're not going to do it."
That's a great wife.
Yeah, well, she's a writer as well. She's smart, and she knows that, it's hard to tell an honest and true story.
Right.
And it's hard to get a movie. They make so few movies these days, and the independent films that come out are in many ways mirror images of the big studio films.
Yes.
And so this I'm proud to say that this film is truly an independent film and that it was made on a shoestring budget.
Yeah, 500,000 I believe, something.
Probably, yeah.
Look, you don't have to tell me exactly.
I think that's
stretching it.
That would
have been nice.
Yeah, that would have been comfortable. I would have been able to wear shoes. It was so low budget I couldn't afford shoes on the set.
Okay,
I had to go barefoot.
20 days of filming.
20 days of filming. I still got bunions. I had no shoes. I couldn't afford shoes. I couldn't afford underpants.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
What otter needs?
Look at you
I
now.
have no idea how difficult in August in New York not to be able to afford underpants on your own set.
Yeah. but it's more
Terrible.
comfortable.
It's rough.
And people were just offended by that, you know.
I don't know
for
why.
many reasons. Well, you know, when the humidity
In New
hits,
York, I figured too.
humidity hits. But no, it's truly an independently made film.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's one of the things I appreciate more than anything is that it wasn't like everything else. And I also really thought the idea of the effect we have on each other's lives, we don't fully understand until sometimes many years later, sometimes never, but sometimes many years later. Because I was thinking, how are these two going to think about this relationship in 10, 20, 30 years? That effect it had on them.
yeah, I think you know what, it's for him. It's his first love.
Yeah.
You know, I think by the end of it, he's completely fallen for her.
And to some degree, his first time actually experiencing love, let alone romantic love.
I think it's the first sensation of friendship, love, you know,
Any kind of caring,
intimacy.
exactly,
Yeah,
because his parents are kind
love.
of, you know, his father's gone, father's passed away. He's got a stepdad, but he's off there, and mom really not really connected.
it's a very cold existence, and it's lonely, and he's found ways to maneuver and survive in this, and I think
protect himself. That's the thing. Honestly, he has this great intellect, and to some degree, it protects him because he's able to sometimes
And a lot of disposable income, which helps
exactly.
as well.
Yeah.
But never is really connected to anybody until this person comes in, and then I think that to me it was the idea, that crumbling of his, if I can say it, his exterior, which is the face he puts on, to be able to stand back and judge what's going on and how he should operate, but then to have that come into his life where it's kind of strips that away as you come through it, the layers peeled, and then he has a true relationship with somebody that isn't based on it. I thought that was wonderful to see develop.
I thought he had a great, I felt that he was even closer to his driver than he
to
was
some
his
degree
mother.
than his
And
mother,
I was
yeah.
likening that relationship to a small degree to the relationship that Peter O'Toole's character in My Favorite Year had with his driver,
Right.
with Alfie, and that
Yeah.
it was like his only one person, and because he knew so much about his driver, and his driver was going to protect him no matter what.
He's got my back.
Yeah, he's got my back, and I really like that.
Yeah, well, they have a mutual understanding.
Yeah.
These two, and you know, it's funny. The guy that you know, the character, he one of the things I'm really proud of in the film is that, you know, I don't spend a lot of time overstating that relationship, but I think you get a pretty good history of that. You know, you sort of see this little kid sitting, you know, sitting with him and talking, and you know, he knows his background and his history, and they're friends, and they, you know, and it's the guy that plays the part of the driver, Gerard is the character's name, is a guy named Frank Shatkin, who I went to high school with. He and I go way back, and you know, there's only a couple of moments that he has in the film, but he's able to, you know, you can see, get the whole picture, and you know, that's one of the things that I was referring to in that, you know, in terms of subtlety, you know, and what I'm really most proud of in this film is, you know, there's all these sort of little peripheral things going on, you know, with Barbara, his mother, Debra Messing's character, you know, what she's able to do in a brief role, I think paints a great picture. You know, and being an actor, I take note of these things because, you know, just her demeanor, the way she sits and you know, and carries herself. I see a whole world.
Sure.
And, you know, and so but yeah, I think getting back to Reggie, it does start to peel away. You know, that facade, and he is at some point sort of becomes more comfortable being a kid.
Yeah.
And
Because he's had to be an adult.
Because
there is no adult around him.
Got to take care of himself.
Exactly. So that's how he's learned to survive.
And it's also that Reggie's character, being so young and so intelligent, he knows who he wants to associate himself with. Like, even his friends, he keeps at arm's length and arm's distance. But then all the scenes that he's with Leighton Meester and with Eleanor, is that you see their conversations and how they're peeling away those layers, and how he's learning more about her life and how more similar they are And I really enjoyed just watching that relationship build.
I have a question for you because I'm sorry to interrupt. The relation, obviously he's lost his father, so there's a something missing from his upbringing, of course. And I inferred by that that's one reason why he keeps people at distance, because he knows at some point they're gonna go away, because he learned it very early. Was that something you had intended? Was that something you wanted us to infer? Or?
Yeah. I think that he's a kid who's been kind of raised by hired help.
Yeah.
Nannies and that's a transient operation. Like, they come and they go, and they're not going to be there forever. And when he was his father died when he was 3, and I think that what happened then is Barbara, his mother, somehow got involved with this older guy we don't see, very wealthy. I'm not sure that her first husband was that wealthy a guy. I think he was an academic, in academia, and I don't think they did very well. And then she finds herself in this lap of luxury, in this this huge, enormous Manhattan abode, which is in disrepair, but nonetheless it's very opulent. And so I think that she's sort of in a desperate way trying not to lose that. And so everybody's got sort of their own agenda. But none of their on their agenda, none of their agendas is Reggie's well-being or care.
Yeah, exactly. He's way low.
He's sort of low on the priority list, and I think he understands that, and he's fine with it. He can handle it, and
because he rationalized it, but you can see when he actually has a real relationship, but he doesn't realize how much he's been missing in having that in his life.
Right. Somebody who actually, he has one friend, a guy named Raj, who's probably his intellectual equal, but it's just a complete kind of dork. He's just inappropriate. He's just he cares a great deal for him, but he's like, he's one of those guys, And so when she comes along, not only she's obviously really pretty and all, and he is a kid,
he's 12-year-old
kid, but also she's intriguing, and there's a lot that he can sense immediately. There's something more to the story with her, and as we find out, she's a very
accomplished,
talented musician. She's Juilliard accepted her into the music program there. That's not easy, but she's also a survivor, like him, and she's also found a way to maneuver her way to where she is in life.
They're both survivors,
in one piece, finding your way from a small town like Oneida, New York, to Manhattan, with no money and no prospects, it's not an easy thing to do. I think a lot of that, a lot of what Eleanor does in the movie is based on my wife Heather. Who's similar in many ways, and lived in the East Village, and her strength and chutzpah reminds me a lot of my wife. But like, I always admired people who can get from that point to that point, and especially and survive in a city like New York with no money. It's not an easy thing to do, as a musician or an actor or an artist of any kind, and to persevere, to keep going, to keep pushing that is, and I think he senses that, he sees that, and it's intriguing to him, and their lives are very similar in that regard. They've both been let down by their parents and by the adults in their lives, and he for him she represents a breath of fresh air, and for him, for her, with him, it's it's a similar connection there. So
I just have a lot that I want to talk with you about. I do want to stick on like Sunday Like Rain for a minute, because you'd mentioned something about it was hard to get this movie done.
Yeah.
How to get it made.
Yeah.
You've done it all. From acting, television, movies,
modeling,
stage, modeling.
It was hand modeling.
You're good.
Yeah.
Watch out for the iron.
I still insisted on doing it partially nude. They were just taking my hands. I said, "Let me just take off my shirt and get into this thing."
See, that prepped you for directing this movie.
Absolutely.
So, what I want to ask you is, if you were to have made this movie, say, in the 80s, Okay, would it have been easier for you? Because I have a distribution, exhibition, and production background, and things have changed so much, especially in the distribution of movies today.
Absolutely.
And I understand that there are so many more outlets, but theatrically, the theatrical distribution model it's crazy how it's changed in jamming theaters. Yeah. Whereas I was watching this movie and I was like going, if this movie were to have been made, say, in the mid 80s or even the 90s, this is the type of indie fare that a studio would pick up and release because, hey, we need the product. Exhibitors would love it because, hey, we need during these various downtimes. And like, what are your thoughts on the change in exhibition and distribution?
Well, I think it's interesting point you bring up there. It's true, and I my first film was in 1999, and the amount of the evolution between then and now is it's
exponential.
There's nothing even remotely similar about it, and to one degree is that there's similar films. Joe the King and Like Sunday Like Rain are both movies about the loneliness and sadness and hopelessness that can sometimes accompany childhood, being a child. And it's not a commercial prospect. Right. It's just not Cinderella.
It's not an easy sell.
No,
but in ways it is like Cinderella. Actually,
that's true. There's some.
But when that film was Joe the King, for me the most shocking thing was that Joe the King was really embraced at that time, and by embraced I mean it was invited to Sundance Film Festival.
Won the award.
Won the screenwriting
Waldo
award.
Salt Screenwriting Award. Yeah.
And then went to Toronto and every film festival. And the thing that I was most shocked with, about, and this, this I think ties into, the distribution of independent films now, is that the film festival world is completely different.
Changed.
Like this film, we weren't. It wasn't ready for Sundance, but I was really surprised at the reaction that it got from like the Tribeca Film Festival, the Toronto Film Festival. They were just not interested in my film whatsoever. And I think, personally, I think it's a great film festival film, and we did play a multitude.
And you've won awards. You've won best. Right, absolutely.
At some point, I realized, okay, so this is not and I think film festivals now are more, that's where these kinds of films, like films like mine, would launch. But now I think it's more, it's more political, studio, agency oriented, and so it makes it even more difficult to get a movie like mine out there.
It's more on the commercial side for these studios rather than the art side. Wouldn't you? I'm sorry, for these festivals. Wouldn't you agree?
I
to
found
some
that,
of them.
I was shocked because my previous film, New York City Serenade, was at Toronto Film Festival, and so I think even in that, and that was 2007. So I think even in that period, it's changed. 6 year time. And I was really shocked and disappointed, particularly with Toronto. And because I think, but what I realized looking at what they do program at these festivals, they're studio films essentially. And so what I did was change direction and say, okay, gonna go after the film festivals because you have to go with who want.
Yeah, you gotta go where the audience is.
You gotta go where the audience is. And so I was really happy that happened because I ended up premiering the film world premiere at the Raindance Film Festival, which is
UK, right?
Fantastic, yeah. A guy named Elliot, I hope I'm getting his name, Elliot Grove, runs that Raindance, and it's a great festival. And it's in London. I think it's the biggest independent film festival in Europe, one of them. And we had a great reception there, and then premiered it at the Mill Valley Film Festival, and we went to Hamptons, and won awards at all kinds of film festivals. So I think for me the biggest change that is happened over the years is sort of the
corporatization.
Thank you. Of the
film festival.
Yes, a film festival. Being an auteur, I don't have a.
I wanted to bring up because I have someone who when I was telling them who we were going to have on our show today. He goes,
They said, "Who is that?"
no,
it doesn't ring a bell.
You may say this about him. I don't know, but he actually was the person. His name is Peter Block, and he bought Joe the King for Trimark Pictures at the time, which was going into Lionsgate.
Yes,
because now it's a Lionsgate property.
Yeah,
and he said to say hello.
Tell him.
And
Maybe
you know,
someday I'll get the money he owes me.
well, I'll tell you.
Hello is fine, but how about a check, man?
That he didn't send me. So
you
he
better
didn't
look
get
into that,
back,
Dimitri.
but I can make that happen. No,
Yeah.
but you're
But
right,
he's-
because his
he's-
sensibilities too, and you're right, they have changed. Where a lot of people. And I hear this from acquisitions too, especially when they're the smaller acquisitions. A lot of the movies that they're going to see, it's like, nope, they're already bought. Nope, already done. They already have distribution.
Yeah.
And then the small ones that don't have distribution, they're like, it's hard to even, like, you get those and it's like, okay, now what are we going to do with it? How do we get it released in theaters? You know.
Yeah.
And I love all movies, don't get me wrong, but, you know, for exhibition too, it gets harder because when the bigger studios are cramming a lot of tentpole, they're missing out on when there are down periods of time where this movie would fit in perfectly for a January, February kind of a release.
Absolutely.
And I love this movie. You know, I knew I was sucked in when I was like going, I want to see her teach him how to swim, and I want him to write that part for her clarinet,
cornet.
her cornet.
yeah.
And once that happened, I was like, yeah, okay, it's got me, because I wanted to see that. So I was really bummed that he never learned how to swim. But
That was closed for renovation.
That's right.
I thought it was budgetary,
Tile.
maybe, but
Probably.
you know,
Well,
you
the
can
funny thing about the whole thing, get off this sort of going on a tangent, was the house that he lives in. In the script, I had written a ultra modern kind of, you know, do you remember the house, Mr. Deeds and Mr. You know, Adam's house? Like
Yeah.
that was my idea of that what the house would be like that Reggie lived in, was like beautiful, sparkling
Right.
marble, everything brand new, stained glass, like, you know, like pristine. And what I soon found out on the budget that we had, first of all, I didn't even have a locations manager. I couldn't. I was the locations manager.
course,
Me
yeah,
and,
yeah,
and, you know,
exactly.
and so we had a couple people we hired interns to go out like scouting, and they would come back and show us these apartments. I say, that's perfect, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
$40,000 a day for these things, you know, for these places, just, you know, plus insurance, and they want you to come in
Let's see,
and
40,000,
repaint
20
it.
days.
Yeah, that's the
Where's
whole
Miss
budget.
Havisham's house? Some great expectations.
Yeah,
We gotta go.
exactly. So my DP and I were sitting around. A guy named James Jones, great DP, and he thought of this place. It's in Yonkers, New York. And he thought he had shot something there, and we went up there, and it's an old manor house built in 1912. A complete mess, but it's beautiful and it's huge and open
And completely not what you wrote.
not what I wrote at all. And so, and I opened. We were walking around. I was trying to, as I was walking around, looking, I was trying to think of how I could work this in. And I knew I had to, because we could afford it. And
Yeah.
we were running out of time. And we went up to the person who was bringing us around, just the guy who, you know, mows the lawn there. And, you know, he had a set of keys on his thing. And he said, "What are you're making? What's the movie about?" I was like, yeah, because they do photo shoots there. They do, you know, there are some shows and stuff that they're like Boardwalk Empire shot
Okay, sure.
a couple episodes there, and I know this because we used a lot of the furniture that they discarded and left there.
Wow.
Most of the furniture that's in the movie
Was from
is
Boardwalk Empire.
Empire.
That's great trivia.
Yeah, because
That's awesome.
like,
Thank you, Mark Wahlberg.
Because pretty much all of it
Yeah.
is it, because the guy.
So you
that-
saw it and just went, yeah, I'll take advantage
Well,
of it.
yeah, especially when the production designer that we hired brought in like the stuff from his grandmother's basement. He brought it. I said,
Nice.
"Well, wait a minute." And so my DP and I said, he said, "I saw some stuff upstairs. Let's go. It's fun." And he and I were carried like couches down. And
So you're also the grip, of course.
we just moved it around. We just moved it from room to room. And so, but at one point during this initial tour, I opened the door and there was that swimming pool. And I thought, well, this has got to be in the movie. So I wrote, that night I wrote that whole
sequence.
thing with this,
Nice.
with the pool and the swimming. And so I never thought, I thought, well, yeah, and I wrote the line, "I'll teach you." And you know, the idea of that is, you know, people say things like that all the time, and
Right.
you know,
It never comes.
and that's.
But I bet you the first time he does swim, he'll be thinking of her.
Yeah.
You could be, but it's also part of the tragedy of this. I mean, one part of this whole story is it's a real tragic love story. You know,
It goes unfulfilled.
it goes unfulfilled, and you know, the thing about it, I started saying about Leighton and where she comes from, and Eleanor, where she comes from, is that all of the relationships she's had, the male relationships she had in her life has been disastrous. Father, her you know, a string of horrible boyfriends, and then she finally meets somebody who's funny and sweet and charming and smart and have a shared interest and treats her well and understands her, and they can sit and read in a room together and talk. You know, that's a great relationship, but unfortunately,
He's 10 years younger.
it can't be, and so there's certain tragedy to that, and I think that's part of the reason that she has to leave. And you know, people ask me all the time, well, why does she go, you know, and she has to. I think part of it is that, but also this is not her lot in life. You know, she's not going to be you know, she's never equipped for this job anyway. So
It was an
I also
interesting
wanted to talk
decision.
about, just because you mentioned the house and the fact that it was in disrepair, and I had no idea what you had envisioned in your first draft with what the house was, but I liked the way it worked just because it was such opulence but in disrepair, which to me was like who his family was.
well, this film, there was a lot of things like that came together like that.
That
you know,
was
and
great.
I think
Kismet.
one thing I learned is you have to be, when you're working on this budget level. I mean, if this was a big budget movie, I would have said, no, I want the Viking range. I want, you know, and it wouldn't have been the same movie. And so because of these circumstances, and because I went up to Yonkers that day and walked into this place, it added a dimension to the film that wasn't there in the script, but ended up being there, and we were able to get all these beautiful shots, and the house, because we couldn't afford much, because we could only afford the furniture that was there, seems empty and cold, and exactly what it should be.
It is, exactly.
Yes.
And it forced, often it forces one to be more creative, and however it worked, I think it served the piece really well.
You have to be open to the wave that you're on when you're, you know, and that's something that you know, I just keep things open, you know, in terms of not only, you know, those types of things with locations, but you know, work with what you have.
And let me ask you. Sorry, go ahead, Marissa.
Oh, it's fine. I just had to say the locations, especially in the two different worlds, how you establish, because the empty manor. Even Dimitri, you said how you got sucked in. I literally, the first shot, that slow pan across his bedroom. It felt like really added to character development, and then even Eleanor's, and seeing her small apartment, juxtapose those two scenes is just where they come from, how different they are in lifestyle, but how similar they are in just
and how he's awakened,
live.
and how he's dressed with the robe and everything. I was
Right.
like,
Right, and
what am I into?
Yeah, and it's in the script, in the original script, just to give you an idea, I had written, you know, it's a similar, that you know, the way everything is similar, but I had, like, he walks into a huge sort of shower room where there's all kinds of
Shower
like,
jets
it's like a $500,000 shower, you know, but I didn't have that, so I did this, and you know, what you don't see is, you know, I wanted the curtain, you know, and the way the movie opens is there's, you know, it's kind of just, there's curtains blowing, the music's playing, and there's, what you don't see just out of frame is me on the floor shaking the curtain. So it looks like the wind is blowing the curtain.
So you're a curtain wrangler as well.
Yeah, we did, you know, because I was constantly on this film, like walking and saying, wait a minute, where's the fan? There's supposed to be a fan to blow the curtain. And everybody looking at me like, oh.
We don't have a fan.
So is it in the?
It's right there.
But it's in the script. The wind is blowing.
Yeah, who's breaking the script down for me? But you didn't have the shower, but you had that very great shot with the bathtub in that. Now, I didn't look. Was that placed there? Or was that where it was?
That was there. I mean, that's,
really?
that was just circumstances.
Because to me, that was extremely well composed. I'm going, please. I don't think he didn't find that.
I hate to say it, but that was somebody else's idea.
I'm surprised.
We walked. You know, this manor house took on so many different forms. You know, over 100 years. It was a school. It was a girls' school. It was a dormitory. It was all kinds of stuff. So rooms are broken up and portioned off
and made into different things.
And so there was this one room, and I can only assume it was maybe Boardwalk Empire. Somebody had taken this little portion of a bathroom and stuck this bear claw tub, because that tub doesn't go with that house, bear claw tub, and just left it, and there it was. And we moved it next to that window, and we lit it, and obviously, and that was my shot and stuff like that. But that tub was there, and it was in that beautiful tiled bathroom, so that became, and that's my favorite shot in the film.
It was wonderful.
Like
I'm glad you said it, because it was my favorite shot. And I just loved the whole composition of it.
The other funny thing about that was that the prop guy was supposed to, and I'm so prepared as because I've learned, because I always have probably 2 weeks if I'm lucky of prep. So I don't sleep. I just make sure I cover my bases 100 times, and so I'm very clear with everybody. And so you go and do a tech scout and go through every scene with your crew. And so with that tub, I said, we have to have warm water in this tub, because there's gonna be a child sitting in this tub for a good 45 minutes. And so the guy was like, "Oh yeah, I can do that." Well, yeah, we have a special machine. We'll bring in. We'll have bubbles in there, and it'll be warm. I said, "Got it. Just tell me it'll be warm water." He said, "Yeah, there's a special machine I can get. It won't cost anything. I know a friend of mine has it."
I know a guy who knows a guy.
Yeah. So we get up to we're shooting 10 pages that day. We get up to that scene. And what I encounter, because I say, "Are we ready for Julian to come in?" He's got his, I bring Julian, and he's got his little bathrobe on, and because he's got to be just in his swimming trunks, because he's sitting there, and it's freezing,
freezing water,
and the guys are trying to get this machine to work, and there's bubbles sort of randomly flying all over the place, and nothing's going in the tub, and the water is ice cold. And I said, I thought you said this was full. I said, get it out, just get it out. And we are on a tight schedule, so by 2:00 we have to be out of the scene into the next scene. So I said, just bring as much warm water, get all the bottles of water we have on this set, and bring them up here. Let's get this tub, put dishwashing liquid or whatever in there. And this poor child, if you look closely, he's
shivering.
His lips are blue. He's shaking. Every time I see it, because I know.
Oh yeah, well, I didn't notice it at all.
Well,
so.
Now everybody else.
Yeah, great. Now we're all paying attention to it.
Another little
very
tidbit. That's what we.
Extremely well composed shot.
He's a good boy.
Quivering lips.
He never complained. This guy, he never complained.
I want to,
So
and I want to
talented.
talk about him, and I get so much. I want to talk about you as well. You've worked with a ton of great people. Very recognizable. One of the first movies I remember, Career Opportunities, for me, written by John Hughes. Yeah. And then you're the man who killed Jimmy Hoffa.
Yeah, I love that.
I am.
You're the man who killed Kevin Spacey. Swimming with Sharks, and that was a movie that resonates. And so you've worked with a lot of great directors as well. But yet you've only directed 4 movies.
Yes.
In your entire career. Who do you find to be your inspiration of either the people that you've worked with? But I read that you actually, with so many people you've worked with, you look at other people that you haven't worked with yet who
Pretty much
inspired you.
Yeah, with the exception of Oliver Stone, but stylistically we're worlds apart. But his demeanor is something that I sort of emulate in terms of.
And what is it? What about his demeanor?
It's just when you're making a film, especially the kind of films I'm making, which have to be done quickly and efficiently. You have to be in control of every element, and you can't. The mistake I've seen directors make, on small movies or first-time directors, is they. This is not to imply you're not collaborating. You have to be collaborative with everybody. That's more than any art form. It's a collaborative art form. But you have to make sure that you have it all under control, and in order to get it done and get it done the way you want and the way you envision it, because essentially, especially if in terms of a writer director, it's really your insight that's going to make it, and everybody's ideas and input
feed into that.
But
they have to feed into that vision. Right?
They have to feed into that vision. Otherwise, it doesn't go the way it should go. And so, with Oliver, I have a different temperament, a different thing, but I appreciated how he handled on a much bigger scale, obviously, budget and studio film wise, but in terms of my films that I've made, you know, we talked about Peter Bogdanovich's films, and just in terms of their tone and how he used the score and sound. I remember in Last Picture Show, the sound or the lack of sound. I love when the sound goes out and it's just silent. Those, you know, like those are that's a Bogdanovich thing, and I'm sure other and Truffaut, the way he used the sound and the score and the way the characters interact, and so Paul Mazursky, you know, one of my favorite films is Next Stop Greenwich Village, and you know that there's that influence as well in my filmmaking.
Yeah, I definitely have to speak to the sound of the music that you used in this particular movie. I felt like the score, though, like Sunday Like Rain, definitely set the tone throughout the very serious but very beautiful in and of itself. And then also the slow conversation that we have between the main characters. There were moments where there was just pure silence, and that's all you needed. And that's what I really loved about the relationship, that you know, they're at that point of understanding, like there really are no words, that you don't need that, and I really love that.
And because this took, I mean, well, the whole relationship hinges on that first time she hears that music, because she's expecting something totally else when she comes into the room, I would guess. She's not expecting a 12-year-old playing that.
I don't think she's I'm not sure what she's expecting. I mean, she's been to the house. She's had a very strange interview with the lady of the house, and you know, not it's, and the house is practically empty. It's like walking into a bank or something, or Grand Central, and as she says, and what I wrote in the script was what she hears as she walks nears the entrance to that auditorium stops her in her tracks, and so that's a tall order for any composer. And you know, there's the guy who wrote the entire score, composed it and recorded it, his name Ed Harcourt, British singer songwriter. You know,
NPR guy.
No,
not Nick Carter. Yeah. Okay, it's a different.
But it's funny. Yeah, it's funny because I discovered. I didn't discover him, but I came across Ed Harcourt on that show that Harcourt used to do. I think it was called Morning Becomes Eclectic in L.A. And I was years ago. I was in L.A. and I was driving. I'm in L.A.
You're right.
And I was here, and I was driving around, and I heard Ed Harcourt, the singer-songwriter, talking to Nick Harcourt, I think his name is, about his music, and he played a song, and I loved that song so much that I made it the focus of New York City Serenade, my last film, and I got in touch with Ed and asked him, would you be interested in doing a score? And he said, yeah, I would, and he scored that movie. So when it came time to do Like Sunday Like Rain, I sent him the script, and I knew how important that piece of music was, and I sent it to him. Sent the script, and you know, not long after, he sent me the demo for Like Sunday Like Rain theme, which is what it's called in the film, and it just blew my mind how beautiful and perfect it was. Just that piece.
Did you know before you got the piece that you were going to use it in many different iterations, or because it affected you much, then you went, I can feel this throughout the movie? I mean, one time you have a xylophone playing. I'm not exactly sure what instrument.
It's called a dulcitone. Yeah, and that piece, he calls it dulcet rain. It's like, it sounds like a xylophone, or it's so pretty. And
it reminded me a lot of John Coltrane, Thelonious Monk. Kind of
it has that
feel and almost that which was, for me, it was.
So did you plan ahead of time though that you were going to use it throughout, or did you?
No.
So okay.
We with New York City Serenade, Ed has a song called "Watching the Sun Come Up," which is a song that appears that he was on one of his albums. That's what I heard him do, and I said, I want to use that song for my movie. And so we ended up, for New York City Serenade, we ended up using "Watching the Sun Come Up" in several different arrangements. Some you wouldn't even recognize it as being the piece. It's in piano, it's in strings, it's in acoustic guitar. And so we had done it like that, but I hadn't thought of one song. And so essentially the Like Sunday Like Rain theme is really, the melody of it is the entire score, and the dulcet tone. And there's a couple of other pieces that are in the film, but it's essentially one piece of music. And he wrote and composed this entire score on a shoestring, and I couldn't. It's
because
so important.
I love it.
especially because of the ending. I was thinking, they play this together finally. Of course, they're not together, but they play it together. And I'm going, he must have thought in the beginning that this was going to play throughout because you so earned that last bit.
Well, I had I had the ending. That they would play sort of this long distance duet together, and I knew and I knew that it opened the film. Well, actually, I didn't anticipate Like Sunday Like Rain theme opening the song. I just in the script it was just a piece of classical music playing, and but yeah, so that sort of came during the editing process as we were editing. I had the theme, I had the song the Like Sunday Like Rain theme, da da da, that thing, that he wrote for me that we had on the set, so they had it while they were obviously for playback and stuff like that, and just for mood, it's so evocative, that piece. So we had that, and then as my editor and I were sitting, and I would look at it and say, we need something here, and I would call Ed and say, I'm gonna send you a scene. You'd look at it, and he'd seen the film, but I would send him a scene, and he's so good that in 20 minutes he'd have a piece of music. And he and I, it's so important in this process to have collaborators that you're in sync with, because if he didn't have some kind of crazy connection with me and my writing, it just wouldn't work. And so it's
and it's a theme that we always talk about too, especially with good movies. We talk about that collaborative effort, because if it doesn't work, if there's a breakdown somewhere, it's evident that it's just
Something
ain't working. But when that collaborative, when all those gears are turning and they're meshing with each other, you come up with a really solid movie. Whether it be a big movie or a small movie, the collaboration is probably the most important part of doing that. And it comes from casting, working on production, even to PAs helping out and doing all, there's a cause. You're doing this for a cause to make something. So, you made something special. I wanted to talk about the kid, Julian, for a little bit, because to me, this kid's a great find. Well, I wanted to, because he has the sense of, like, he could be in a Neil Simon kind of a play. He had this rapport. There was a scene, the chess, when they're playing chess, and his timing, and he goes, he was just quick, like you would see that kind of rapport, and again, that banter is sort of Neil Simonish. That's not easy for a very good actor to accomplish. This kid nailed it. How did you find him? And
well, it's one of those things.
It was easy, right? 2 weeks maybe at the most?
I had no prospects for that role at all. And we were running out of time. Things, we had pushed, we were supposed to start shooting, and I said, we got to push it a week, and that cost money, and things are starting to get scary and starting to fall apart. These things are built on very hollowed ground. Things. Something goes
train's
wrong.
Gonna move, and we can't stop it.
I've had situations where people, suddenly they're there and then they're not there, and then any little murmur and you can lose it all. So that's what I mean by you have to be efficient, to say the least. And so, my cast, I have a great casting director, Allison Estrin, Paul Schnee, Kerry Barden are my casting directors, and we were doing an extensive search for this kid, and they were all coming in and auditioning for the part, but kind of playing it geeky or nerdy, and that's not who this guy is. Clearly, he's a cool customer. He's streetwise, and he knows how to get what he needs. We discussed, if he got to write a check, he's got to do that. Yeah. He's the whole picture. He's got it all, and. I wrote a character that I wanted to play. I sort of wrote it for myself. Unfortunately, I wasn't available. But
due to budgetary reasons.
But you would be able to sleep with the director if you needed the part.
Oh, God knows. I spent a lot of time. I can be very intimate with the director if you need me to. But
you're often naked with him. But go ahead.
Oh yeah,
even on set.
Yes. But there's a very small amount of actors that can play at that age that can do this kind of thing, and they would come in and I would try to work with them, and I knew that I had to work with them, and I would try to explain to them, we would read a scene where he's in the restaurant with her, and saying, "Oh, come on, this guy's a world-class chef." He's like, how do you teach that to a 12-year-old who thinks he's playing, who's reading it like it's like a bookish guy? And then I get a call from them and saying, we saw, they started putting kids on tape, and we saw some pretty well-known actors of, kid actors who are around at that time, and not, it just wasn't right. And so they put Julian on tape, and they sent me the tape, and she said, I think he might be close. I looked at the tape, and there was something there. Loved the way he looked, his face, because it was also a fine line. He can't be too old. He can't. He's got to be young enough where it can't be creepy.
Yeah.
He's lusting over this person. Yeah. That was a real tightrope that I walked. Yeah, I walked that tightrope all the way because it can't get anywhere near that territory. Otherwise,
the creep factor we had to stay away from.
Yeah. So he's got to be a certain age, but he's got to be also a baby. A kid. He's got to be a kid. And so I brought him in, and we worked together, and I gave him, like, for instance, the scene you referenced with he and Raj where they're playing chess. Right. That'll do wonders for your profile, like that kind of thing. And you can't, that is hard. You're right. You're quite right there. That that kind of banter and that kind of timing is hard. But so what you want is somebody who's going to understand and be able to take direction. That's the most difficult thing for an actor of any age to do, is to take, a good director will be able to specifically maneuver you into your performance, and especially children, because and he had never been in a movie before. He had done he did a short film and maybe an episode of a television show, but he had never done a role like this. So what I did was give him small adjustments, and he was able to hear me and say it, and then insert it into his performance in the audition. And I knew that he was right, but he also had a confidence about him, and very normal parents. His mother's a theater director, his father's a psychologist, NYU professor.
And he's normal?
He's normal, yeah. And he had the demeanor, and he was, for any actor, it's confidence. If you have confidence, when I was young, starting out, I had I was really lucky, but I was very successful because I walked in with maybe sometimes too much confidence, when I walked in, but the minute you lose that, it reads. And so,
well, it's funny. I have to bring this back a little bit to Tatum O'Neal and Paper Moon, and another one of my favorite Tatum O'Neal movies, because she embodied in Paper Moon smart mouth, but yet the adult, but yet still a child, and she was so young at that role. And then I go to the Bad News Bears, the original, where again Tatum O'Neal and the rest of the team, they had to be smart mouths, but you had to still believe them as kids. Yeah, they were kids. And in this movie, I never once thought that he was not a kid. Yeah, I just felt like he's wicked smart.
Yeah, because he's so smart.
He's so smart. He was above him. But when his connection with Eleanor starts to take off, like his kid-like charm actually, like you said, it melted down, and he played it so well that it made it believable and not creepy, because he was this kid. But I loved the way this kid talked and his rapport.
That's something that I was really lucky. I was really lucky because I also think just the way he speaks, as you say, there's some moments in the film that now that it's all said and done, like the other night, it occurred to me like it's out there now. Right. So I sort of, like, for the first time, could sit and kind of eat popcorn,
breathe, just watch it for fun and not have to.
Yeah, and take off my shoes and sit in the theater. People don't like that normally, but I like to do that. Take my shoes off, put them on the seat in front of me, and
oh, that was you.
Yeah, that's me. I sit back and watch the movie, but I enjoyed. When he says, "Can I make you a snack?" Right. Just the way that comes out of his little mouth is for me. It's perfect, and that has nothing to do with. That's nothing more than just chance that kid walked into this movie.
Yeah.
You know, and
the way he said that too,
Yeah.
it was like a kid. He was like, "Can I make you a snack?" And then he goes, "I could whip you up some vegetable ramen,
Right.
vegan
Frittata, I
noodles."
think he said
Yeah,
tofu curry or something.
yeah, it was.
Yeah, he's a great cook. He's a great
Now,
cook.
Leighton
like-
Meester too, who up until this movie, I'm not going to say that I was like her biggest fan. What came
Should be
first?
happy to hear that.
No, but I'm just saying this is the project that I noticed her in.
Yeah.
And again, in a movie like this, it relies on chemistry.
Yeah.
I mean, if there ain't chemistry between these two characters, then you ain't got a movie.
story.
And it works. So who did you hire first? Who did you cast first? And then how long was it to find that perfect chemistry? We talked about Julian.
Yeah, because you don't have time.
Yeah.
So how did you?
There was no time. It's
Yeah.
just, I saw Country Strong
Mm-hmm.
with Leighton years ago, and it's it wasn't so much the movie,
Mm-hmm.
but her performance in it, and she had a supporting role in that movie, but she, to me, was the best thing in that movie, and it was the way she looked, her demeanor on screen. I don't know what it was, her eyes, and she doesn't look like anybody else. I mean, she's a beautiful
Yes.
person, but it's not like anyone else really to me. And I was in the middle of writing it, and I thought this is exactly what I'm writing, and so I kept
So
that.
you knew while you were writing it that this,
You had her in mind.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
okay.
and she wasn't then, and she's not what they can see. These movies, even if when they're this low budget, the people that are financing are demanding
Yeah, you have to
big
have-
names and absurd names. Like how about Julia Roberts? Is Streep too old? Yeah. But then you start to think, okay, maybe, all right.
Yeah,
Well,
that-
you want to offer it to her, but I entertained those notions with them. Every conceivable, A-list
Sure.
actress. But for me, it was always Leighton, and I just said, yeah, but Leighton, you gotta think, she's amazing. And so I said, let me just send Leighton the script, see if she wants to do it. So she did want to meet me. And we sat in a coffee shop in Manhattan, in 3 hours. We talked about this. She understood this character, and it's who she is, it's where she's from, and it's I didn't know it, but she connected with it on a personal level, and because of where she comes from, and then it was just a matter of now that I knew that she wanted to do it, a matter of getting it into the realm of possibility with these people, and they had no idea who she was, and because they're but that's not a reflection of her, just more
No, it's them.
yeah,
And the financiers.
and so it was Leighton. She was going to do it, and I wasn't going to have anybody else in it. And in terms of their connection, Julian and Leighton, I sent her his audition tape, and she, because it's important that she knows, because I knew the importance of that relationship, and so when she saw that tape, she cried, and as I did when I was in the room. He played the last scene in audition.
The don't go scene.
Yeah, will anybody ever love me?
Oh.
Anything anybody ever love me? Which is a great, great a moment for him, and we were in tears. It was my wife and I, and the cast director. He really nailed it, and in a subtle way. And so I sent her, and then when she came to town, she got to town maybe a week before we started filming, or less. Immediately, we had 6 hours of rehearsal, 2 hours a day for 3 days. That's what we had.
That's it.
That was it, and that's all we can afford.
Luxury.
And I got a guy who I knew, I taught a couple acting seminars, and this guy loaned me a space to do the rehearsal, which was basically just a room with a table. It was a rehearsal space, and I wanted to read through the entire script with them and go through each scene, try to break down each scene. But I knew that the more importantly than breaking down each scene, because as a director, I knew that I could get, with a 12-year-old, it's a different approach than with an adult. You have a lot more. You can take a lot more liberties. Like I could say to Julian, say it faster, and say it like a little bit like this, not like this, but say it like this. You know, and you can never get away with
You
that.
can give a line read. You can't.
You can't do that with the adults.
No.
So for me, it was, you know, and I really trusted Leighton. I knew just from seeing her on that movie, I knew what she could do, and I wanted her to take this and do it. So the rehearsal was more important for me. The rehearsal was them spending time together.
Because you could build off that, right?
Build off that, and wouldn't you know it, the minute they met, they were just, you know, and he came in with his Vans, his skateboard. He's a kid, you know, in New York City kid. He's nothing like this character. Like, if you ever meet this guy, nothing. He's a New York City public school kid. That's it. And, you know, he's a good actor.
It was good to see.
Wow.
It was good to
Yeah.
see him. And Leighton Meester has this to say about you. She says, and I found this in Paste Magazine, he's such an actor's director. He conveys a sense of security.
Oh, that's nice.
So
that's really nice.
You know, so she had lots of high marks. But it seems that you have this.
But let's explore that too,
Yeah.
because as an actor, what do you want from a director? And then as a director, how do you assimilate that in what you offer your actor? How does that work for you?
It's completely contrasting.
That's what I mean. It's crazy.
As an actor, I don't want to be bothered. I mean,
Right.
at this point, I've been doing this for not to sound like a jerk or anything, but I've been doing this, you know, it's like anybody who's been doing something, you know, with any success for 30 some odd years, you know what you're doing.
Right.
You know, like if you're a shoemaker,
Yeah.
you don't need somebody over your you know, for 35 years. You don't need somebody to say, yeah, the lace, you got eyelets for lace. I know
Is that
how to
you?
make a shoe, man. I don't need you telling me how to make a shoe.
Is that how you're going to do it?
Yeah, really? Well, then why are you naked?
Now that not only but maybe make yourself comfortable.
Make yourself some clothes.
But yeah, so oftentimes, and this is probably to the annoyance of a lot of directors I worked with, like I kind of just want to, you know,
You want to be left
let
alone?
me just do my thing, please. Let me do my thing, and I can. You'll be happy. Now that's not to say that I don't want. You know, I'm not going to collaborate with them because I, you know, I do have respect for them, but mostly my method, if I have one of working as an actor, is I just let me do it, and then if there's something specific, tell me specifically what you want. You know, I can do that. With them, you know, I do. You know, I'm happy to hear that she felt safe and secure because I have a great admiration for them, and I want them to feel. I think that you have to take care of them, you know, and that's how you get performances out of them.
Yeah.
And trust them, especially, you know, with Leighton. You know, I knew that she was on the right track, and so, you know, so maybe it is similar to what I want. I know. I was very specific.
So, but how do you make that note? If they're not giving you what you want, does it change, or do you have your own way that, like, okay, I'm just going to communicate, or does it depend on who the actor is?
Or is it not my tempo?
no, is it,
Well, it depends. It changes.
Right.
You know, Billie Joe. You know, it was his real first time
from Green Day. So.
Yeah, and so he's a beginner,
right.
You know, and by beginner I mean, you know, he's done some acting work, but you know, this was his first feature acting work, and
right.
So, you know, and I knew that he was, you know, there was a little bit of apprehension, and so I had to take a different approach with Billy, and you know, that was, you know, maybe a little bit more similar to the way I work with Julian, and you know, if you know Billie Joe Armstrong, he's the sweetest, nicest, most open rock star you'll ever want to meet. I mean, this guy is an enormous rock star. Sure, like he's got like a fan, like people.
Yeah.
He's beloved across the universe, and here he is, you know, standing in his, you know, in his hoodie on my film set, and you know, and in Williamsburg. Where should I go? What do I do? So yeah, you know, so you have to. That's a whole different, you know, thing to direct. But with Leighton, you know, it would, if, you know, for instance, you know, give you an example, there's a scene where they're lying in a hotel room, you know, side by side in bed, and she's telling, you know, it's an 8-page scene. It's a long scene.
This is when they're talking at night.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And you know, you have to, as an audience member, you know, this movie demands
attention,
to be very patient. And attention. And so
it takes its time, but that's kind of the fun of it. If you just just relax and enjoy.
Yeah, and you know, you let them take you on this journey, but the scene culminates with her remembering something that immediately strikes her and makes her cry, and that's a tough thing for an actor, So she's talking about this trumpet or this cornet that she had that was given to her by her father, and it was he gave it to her for her graduation, and she hadn't seen him in a long time. She didn't even know he was in town or at this graduation ceremony. When she came out to the parking lot, he was standing there, and he had this case with a big red bow on it, as she says. And so we played the scene a couple times, and I said to her, she knew there was emotion there. She was emotional, but essentially I said, gave her the note. You haven't seen him in a long time, in the scheme of the story that she's telling, and I think that is what strikes you, and that's what stirs you, and next take, that's what you see in the movie. So with somebody as gifted and wonderful and as emotionally connected as Leighton as an actress, that's all it takes. I knew that before I met her, and I learned more about it when we talked for 3 hours in the coffee shop. But she, she's the real thing. There's a real artistry to what she does.
Yeah, well, as I said, for me anyways, this was the first time for me that I noticed who she was, and she popped off screen. I think you did an amazing job. Okay, so
you haven't seen Here's My Boy. What's
No, I haven't seen Here's My Boy. No.
Okay. Well, see, there you go. If you'd seen that movie.
Yeah.
She was in a prom night, I think. Was it?
He's
Prom
My Boy.
That's My Boy.
That's My Boy.
That's a brilliant movie. David Lean directed that one.
He's still
I love the
directing, huh?
vistas, the shot.
So, why only 4 movies? You're either very discerning, or what is it that?
I'll answer that. How long did this one take?
7 years.
7 years. There you go.
Nobody wants to do them.
Yeah.
Is it? Or is it because I just wonder. You had obviously you done it all. You're gifted. You're talented. You know your way in front of behind the camera. So I'm going. He either doesn't. Something gravitates. Something makes you gravitate towards the project to make you do it, because it seems to be only a quote-unquote special occasion in which you're going to go and direct.
Well, I did the first film I did was Joe the King, as we discussed, and I was an actor. I had always been a writer. I was always.
You didn't intend to direct that, did you?
No,
you wanted somebody else.
I wanted. I was thinking that I could get Robert Benton, or somebody like that to direct it. I sent it to a whole bunch of directors, and I got nothing, in return. And so I thought, I'll just do. I went out, raised the money, did it myself. And then after that, there was some degree of attention paid to that. As we talked about, it did well at Sundance, and it got distribution, and it got really nice notices. And I was offered. Harvey Weinstein offered me to do a movie after that, so William Morris signed me, and and I was then people started thinking of me more as a
filmmaker,
more than
not
just an actor.
Sure.
And Harvey Weinstein saw the film and liked it, and he liked he loved the 400 Blows, and the film is akin to the 400 Blows in many ways, and so he offered me a movie called Whatever, I think it was called Whatever. It was with Kirsten Dunst and the guy that did the thong song.
Cisco?
That's always
Cisco. And she's either a huge Cisco fan or a huge thong song fan, or both. So, but yes, it was Kirsten Dunst and Cisco, as you quite rightly noted, and it was called I forget what the name of it. I want to say Whatever, but it was a movie about adolescence, and it had some music, and it wasn't horrible. But I wanted to do my thing, which was a movie. My next film was called The Jimmy Show, which was something that I loved, and it was an adaptation I did of a one-act play called Veins and Thumbtacks by a playwright named Jonathan Mark Sherman, and I really wanted to make this into a movie. So, probably at the sake of my entire filmmaking career, I said no to Harvey Weinstein in order to make The Jimmy Show.
That's courage.
Which the New York Times said a must to avoid on a bad day, and
you have that going for you.
Yes, it's a brilliant. I mean, the Jimmy Show I consider to be a great movie. I love it. But so I think to answer your question is I have, I'm more interested in doing things that I write myself.
Right.
And after the Jimmy Show, New York City Serenade, they're not easy movies to get made because the characters are not your.
Is it just a hard sell?
Yes.
It's not really. They can't see the marketability of it.
They don't it's like I said earlier. These are tough scripts to read.
Yeah.
Because the characters, can come off as unlikable. You could read, the Jimmy Show was about a guy who lives in New Jersey with his invalid grandmother, his wife, and his young daughter, and works in a loading dock of a grocery store. And one day decides he wants to become a stand-up comic, but he has no comic timing, no sense of humor, no jokes. No stage presence. None of the basic
prerequisites.
It's Rupert Pumpkin.
Yes, it's very King of Comedy.
Yeah.
But it makes King of Comedy look like Frozen. That's, it's very as I said, I adapted it from a play, Veins and Thumbtacks by Jonathan Mark Sherman. I did this play off Broadway, and I identified with this character and what he had to say and what his but reading that script, a lot of people thought, this is horrible. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this movie. And with New York City Serenade was about two kind of nowhere guys in New York, and people said to me, they're unlikable. Nobody wants to see these characters. Mm-hmm. But they
resonate with you.
They resonate with me,
so
I mean, at this point, I'm sort of shifting a little bit, and I'm more open to to different things, I suppose. But the next, I don't. With that said, I don't really anticipate veering off
too far away from that.
Too far away.
Do you find the hardest aspect of this is selling the idea of the movie so that you can get financing? Is that the hardest part of your process? Because it's just so challenging now. Because even the distance from New York Serenade and to this one must have been a huge leap. It must have changed, right?
Yeah. Well, that movie, that it's and if they don't, these films are only as good as we talked about.
As your distribution.
And the film festival and the reviews and all that, and New York City Serenade was not the most well received film of my life, and so that coupled with the fact that Lux Under Lake Rain is a very tough sell. Yeah. Took me a long time to get anybody interested in it.
Is that the aspect you like least too, by the way?
What's that?
Is that the aspect you like least, is trying to...
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. I mean, but every step of the way it's heartbreaking. Writing the script is a battle. Writing, it's hard. Yeah. It's hard. And then getting somebody interested in giving you a lot of money to do it, and then, because that takes... getting the talent and getting putting all that stuff putting together the package, which is it's tedious, it's unbearable, and it's heartbreaking. Yes. And then once you do that, you're going through the hassle of production, which is really hard. And then getting everybody together on the same page when it's done, and not like I had to go through enormous battles with the people that financed this film who didn't want this film to be what it is. They wanted it to be something else.
What did they think it was going to be? I mean, did they?
That's it's hard. They and
they wanted. Did they want re-edits and all that? And reams of notes. And
I would say that's why you might not want to do it.
Yeah, you have to be. But I'm proud to say that
you stuck to your gun.
Just everything that you see in this movie is how I wanted this movie. I mean, I this movie is exactly how I wanted.
Well, then I have to ask. Then the people who financed it, they see the end product, and they gotta go. Does any one of them go? You were right.
Yes.
Good.
In this case, it's funny you should say that, because they do now. Because the only way to know how a movie is to sit with an audience. And we've had the opportunity with Lux Under Lake Rain to watch it and to see that reaction, and it's always the same. Like there's
because until then it's a guess.
You never know. Yeah, you're only going off of it didn't get into the Toronto Film Festival, and the guy at Tribeca didn't want the movie, and like that's so like there's so many different reasons for that. Other than what the movie is, that you have to. It's like having a child. I mean, I look at it as a child. Like, you have to really, no matter what happens, I still believe in you. I still know your worth. I still love you. I I brought you into this world, and I am never going to give up on you. I am never going to stop believing in you, and I'm never going to stop telling the world how amazing you are. And I think that, to their credit, the guys at Finance said, now understand that, and now understand why I was like just so unwavering. Because what's the point? This is my, this is for me. This is my artistic expression. This is what I'm going to do with my life. So, I'm not going to, for the sake of some blind hope of, selling it to, Turkish television, change my thing that I, you just can't do that, and you have to tell your story and do it honestly. And so I think they understand that now, and but seeing it with an audience and sitting, with people. And there's nothing more fulfilling and gratifying for me to hear the laughs that come throughout the film, but also at the end, the stillness and the people. You can hear them
reaching for their
blowing their nose and crying.
I was there.
I was too. When he says "Don't go," I was just going,
or do you have to go?
Yeah, it's really sad. And I was sitting, in a screening the other night, and this woman was, sitting next to me. She was inconsolable, sitting next to me. It was, but that for me, that's, that's
I made her cry.
That's a great thing to do. Yeah, I mean, but it's tough to get from there to there. It's tough to get from where I started to 2008 writing the script to be sitting here talking to you guys about it. It's been a long journey.
Second guessing that must go on must be torture. I mean, I can only
triple guessing.
Well, if you have all these people telling you have your vision, you know what you want, and you know what you believe is going to work.
Yeah.
Once you set everybody straight on that, and you say, "Whew, I won that battle." Holy shit, I hope I'm right. Like, up until you see that movie, does it get to that point where you go...
I never doubt it. I never doubt it. I mean,
There's that confidence you were talking about with this.
I just knew... I knew once I finished this film, that, my editor and I, we the great thing about that, my editor is the guy, Miran Mirosik is his name. He's cut all my films, and we fight like cats and dogs. He's always because my films are always, they're very much pace-wise, like Sunday Like Rain.
They breathe.
Yes, and he's always going, no, but you're going to put these people to sleep. Why do you want to do this to the audience?
So he's French?
Sorry, man.
Spanish?
He's actually Croatian, but that's nothing like Croatian. That's my blanket accent.
Got it.
What are you trying to do to me? You're killing me. I feel you. Now we just sit in the back. Sorry, man. I'm not sure what I'm eating. I'm eating something.
Yeah.
No, I love it. I'm not changing the thing.
That's what I loved about this film, because today's society, our attention span is so short nowadays due to technology. And so to have a movie that has that time to breathe again, not to keep repeating myself, but like to let everything flash out and have the realistic moments or just like complete silence, that felt so realistic. We can like latch on to people.
It shows a hell of a lot of courage there too, to just let it sit, let it play.
Yeah, that wasn't easy. That wasn't easy to do. One of my favorite sequences in the film is when they arrive at the hospital upstate. And there's a long sequence. I mean, I guess you might call it a montage. I don't know, but it's just it's music and it's looks exchanged between the two of them. And it does, it does go on. And, the other scene where she's on the phone with her mom, that's a really, really long scene that's demanding of the audience. I understand that. And again, that was one of those things with my editor. It was like, and I knew when I shot that, because I shot,
When she's on the street, on the
payphone, I mean, I shot a couple angles, but I knew that, that's a continuous shot. It starts with a wide shot for the first couple lines, but then it cuts into her and it stays there. And I knew that. And what she's saying, it's one side of a phone conversation, and that's, and it's a testament to her performance. And, but,
you completely get the relationship.
You learn everything about her life. And, so, it's not an easy thing to get by.
But let me ask you that: when you're writing it, as you're writing it, it's one side of the conversation because you didn't write the other side of it, right?
No.
Yeah. So you knew at some point you were just going to lock there and just shoot it, right?
I did. Yeah.
So even when you're writing it, you're going, okay, should I cut back? Should I do an intercut, or should I? No, I just know this is the way I want to see it.
Yeah, I just
You
wrote
just
this.
knew.
It was a monologue that I wrote for, I mean, I envisioned, I thought of, as I said earlier, I thought, a lot of Eleanor is based, or not, there's a lot of my wife Heather and Eleanor and her, she lived in East Village and knocked around, and I thought of her, anybody's relationship, calling home and asking, can I come home?
Yeah.
That's a hard thing, especially for somebody who's as strong and as much as a survivor as Eleanor is, as we know her to be. That's not an easy thing to do. But she's broke and she's out of, and she's been, like this guy, like throwing this guy's guitar out the window and having him come in and, another funny thing that happened is, in the script, she gets fired from her job because he throws a bottle across, he's
Right.
yelling, he throws a bottle across the room. But what was supposed to happen is he was supposed to go outside and bang on the door and say, Eleanor, and then the door's supposed to go, psh, like, he hits the soft spot of the window. But, on the way to work, I get a call from the production coordinator or somebody saying, yeah, so we had a problem. And,
Which is every call you got, right?
Yeah, and I'm driving, and every day, by the way, I had to commute from my home in Connecticut to Manhattan, which is like a 3-hour round trip, and I was like, I'm exhausted. Like, I don't even...
Wait, you did that every day?
I did it every day, yeah.
Goodness.
Because you couldn't afford to stay
No,
in
but
the
they couldn't afford to put me up, and so I would, finish...
Even you couldn't afford to put you up.
I'd be driving home like this.
Exactly.
Stay awake, Frank.
I guess you're lucky they didn't put you on a train.
Love is, And so once in a while, I know I couldn't take a train because it's just too much money.
Yeah.
So I would drive my my used car back and forth, what was I getting at?
You're talking about the glass.
The glass.
So the guy says to me, "We got a problem." And I said, "Oh no, please!" And I'm on the BQE, stuck in traffic on the way to work, trying to make sure I get there on time. And basically, the guy, this guy who's my
Production coordinator.
He was the guy who
Set designer?
The set does my designer. You'll notice on the movie
In
there's
the art department.
There's two
Yes.
credited.
Yeah.
I won't say much more than that. There's two. It's the second name that was really she kind of took over. But anyway, he broke the breakaway glass on the way to work.
Oh, good.
Now, mind you, not only was this a huge tragedy because the whole scene, and Billie Joe Armstrong, this was his first day of work,
Yeah.
he's memorized this scene of him breaking the glass. But it's also, that thing cost a fortune. It was our entire production design budget was this piece of,
Breakaway
it was a
glass.
breakaway door that they had to insert in. And again, it was like the thing with the tub, So, not taking anything away from this guy. We won't name him. You can see his name in the credits, but he's a great guy. Yeah, we all have our problems.
Yeah.
We all have our bad days. But anyway, so what I had to do when I get, so I had to improvise and think. And so what we did was, that was not going to happen. He wasn't going to know. He was no longer going to put his hand through, glass. And so I went and got back in my car and I wrote a new scene, and got it to Billie Joe and sent them out to find some breakaway bottles or glasses, anything they could find. Go to get to a prop house and find it, and that's what ended up being a movie, and it's fine.
Since as an audience we didn't know any difference.
We
Yeah,
never
it's
know
fine.
any difference, and it's actually better.
But I would say, Billy Joel should have stepped up. Hey, it's my first time. Don't worry, I'll break the glass.
Yeah,
I'll just break that
Should've done it with
glass.
his head.
I don't think the people who own that restaurant knew we were filming there. I think we snuck in.
Did you steal a lot of shots?
We still,
Allegedly.
Well, that restaurant was at the time owned by the cinematographer.
Oh,
that was,
you're kidding me.
Wow.
Yeah,
Fortunate.
yeah. So
So
we
you got
shot
it for cheap, or
we shot there. We made a mess of the place, and
Did he cook you lunch?
They actually
Good.
they
You got
catered lunch.
catering and everything.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah,
Food
so
service?
we shot there.
Craftsman.
The payphone happened to be there happened to be a payphone outside though, so we shot a lot around there. Yeah, but we stole all the stuff on the subway.
Yeah.
Mar-
Well, no, allegedly you didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
Marissa, you brought
could
up-
get a big fine if.
Oh, jeez.
They take your cameras. They fine you $50,000. You can, in some cases, you can be in big trouble. And so you take a real risk going down into those subways and shooting. But we had no choice. We had to do it. We did it more than once. We had 2 shots done.
Well, I wanted to ask you. You brought up technology. So, what did you use to film this with?
The Alexa.
Okay.
And we had two Alexas, and which came in really handy. And
Did you do 2 cameras at the same time all the time?
Yeah.
A lot or all the time?
every day?
Every day. Okay.
Yeah, it was because
Just for speed.
for speed, but also with the child.
Oh yeah.
Like
Makes
there's
sense.
so many restrictions with
How many hours you can shoot a day?
minors. Yeah, you had to have a tutor because school was in session for part of the production.
Right.
So we had to have him in school for a certain amount of the day. Plus, he can't work more than 10 hours a day. I think it's 10. There's a restriction to how many hours he can work. I mean, normally you work till you're finished.
Yeah.
But so I had to get his. I had to make sure that I got the wide shot and his close up at the same time, and it was. I would never do it any other way because you get such an abundance of material
Freestyle.
that way,
Right.
and it's really helpful.
So in that
And there's a
debate of
consistency
film,
of performance as well if you do it that way.
It's
'cause
great.
right there.
Yeah, it's makes cutting so much.
Because
Yeah,
continuity is amazing.
Continuity is amazing. You get, you can use. I mean, in most cases, I didn't use a lot. I don't, as we talked about.
You don't do a lot of
I don't
cutting,
use a
yeah.
lot of cuts, but I had the option.
Is that just philosophical? You don't use, or you just like it occurring in front of you? What is there a reason for it? Just stylistically or philosophical? Okay.
Yeah, I
so-
don't like cutting. I like, I like, we talk about Bogdanovich, Jim Jarmusch,
sure.
Stranger in Paradise, and one of my favorite films. There's virtually no cuts in that film, and I like things playing out.
And you don't even do a lot of movement either. It's just kind of
It's simple.
let it occur.
It's very subtle movement, if
Yeah.
at all. And my Jim Jones, the cinematographer. We put the camera on the slider a lot, and did those kinds of. I like those fluid,
and very
Long
yeah.
shots.
I don't
pans.
like this kind of
No.
stuff
Yeah.
at all. I like it. I like the fluid stuff, or I like the wide shots. We have a couple of scenes where they start well in the distance and come toward us and end up, and that becomes the tighter
The
shot.
two shot, yeah.
And those are my favorite kinds.
So in this great debate of film versus digital, it seems like you've embraced digital.
It wasn't. It wasn't. I hate change. I hate
Right.
change. I hate any kind of anything that disrupts my what I did.
Of course.
Yeah,
but
so,
budgetary reasons, I would imagine.
you can't shoot film. And it doesn't make any sense because you can you could shoot all day. You're not going to run out of film, and it's so easy to cut, and it looks great. Nowadays, it looks beautiful.
Yeah.
And it looks if you got the right guy to do the lighting, and I did. And
What are some of your favorite movies today? Movies and directors today.
Wes Anderson, whoever directed Amour, French director. One of my favorite films of all time is a film came out a couple years ago, was the best film, foreign language film, French, 2 women who fall in love. Oh, what the hell was that name? It was very, very provocative. 2 women who fall in love. That was
Not blue.
blue is the warmest color.
Yeah.
Like that to me.
Nice.
That yes.
Good pull, Marissa.
If you need an answer, anything from
Just ask
Cisco
her.
to blue is the warmest
There you go.
color. I made you go on Jeopardy. but
been told I should.
blue is the warmest color. Is I think one of the and Amour. I mean but in terms of I think Wes Anderson is great. I love he has his own style and it's fun to watch and. But I think probably if I had to name one of my favorite films, that would be it. Of recent memory.
Is there anybody outside? Well,
Mr. Dynamite, which is a great documentary about James Brown recently. I like that one.
Is there any director, say Wes Anderson, or anybody that you would like to work with as an actor?
Yeah, that's a big.
Martin Scorsese, I guess.
Anybody who leaves him alone, I think, is the right director.
Yeah, I got a great shot now. Anyway, yeah. But yeah, for me, it's all. It has to do more with the material than the, you know.
So what do you look for? The subtleties? Do you look for the same things as an actor as you do for as in directing?
Yeah, I would like it. Yeah, I mean,
okay.
Unfortunately, at this point, you know, I haven't. You know, I'm always hoping that it's going to turn for me. You know, I'm always looking for that role that's going to put me into those. You know, like the great roles, like the you know they're not knocking down my door to do.
What are the great
roles
such as? Which do you think?
You know, Bradley Cooper type. Well,
okay.
You know, I don't like the violence, but I mean, you know, who's the you know, it's early onset. The guy that did with Michelle Williams. You don't know this. They played a married couple.
Ryan Gosling.
Yeah. You know, like that role that he did in that movie.
Okay.
What's that movie called? With Michelle Williams.
Another
Blue
Valentine.
Another
Yeah.
Blue
My Blue Valentine.
Yeah, such a great movie, and he was. If I could have that role, you know, I would love it. But you know. You know, it's hard for me to, you know, I don't see a lot of movies, but you know, it's Woody Allen. If I would love to, would have to be a Woody Allen movie. I think I'd be really good in one.
Well, let me ask another question that I have too, because today, in today's world, there seems to be this change from going to movies to TV.
Yeah.
TV today is getting a ton of press, and in some cases, an argument is made
Because they're not making
TV,
many films.
Well,
Yeah.
but they're saying that TV is being written better than a lot of movies.
It
It is. Yeah.
Have you, you know, what's the opportunity there? I mean, would you love to?
Did you like your turns
watch
on?
it?
You know?
Well, yeah, that's if you had asked me what kind of, you know, like you know, that's sort of a testament to what the film landscape is. If you asked me what kind of role would you want to do on TV, I could name a dozen, like Breaking Bad, Boardwalk Empire, even Walking Dead, or you know, the show called Getting On is great. You know, there's so much good television. You know, House of Cards, and so you know, for me, you know, Ray Donovan was a great opportunity for me. You know, I got to have a great time with that role, and I got to really create. They gave me the license to create.
You said just
role.
Run with it.
Yeah, pretty much. There was not.
That's not usually the way, right?
That's not really the way at all, and there was not much in way of description or anything with that character, and I think that they liked what I did, and it was only supposed to be an episode or two, and ended up being like 8.
Nice.
And so I was really lucky there. And so as an actor, I'm like most actors these days. I think I'm looking for that.
Right.
You're wonderfully subtly creepy in The Blacklist, that's for sure.
Yes, that's what. Yeah, that was my wedding vows. Actually, my wife. It's a wonderfully subtly creepy.
Yes, it was good.
Do you wonderfully subtly creepy man take this one? Yes. No, but I do that well, and I'm proud of it. Yes, wonderfully subtly creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lost art.
Yeah, it is.
But you know, the thing that was really fun. You know, one of my favorite film roles is this movie I did called Vacancy, where I got to play the creepiest character.
Yeah.
And so I love doing that.
In all your film experience, is there any one or maybe two that you will look back to often, and like with just God? Yeah, I remember. Maybe it was a career opportunities or something. Like, is there a movie that you will think about often and say that was a great time? And
Field of Dreams.
Oh,
It was fun because I was a kid, and you know, I wasn't as bitter and
jaded
and horribly you know, creepy as I am now. No, but it was really fun. It was great.
A sports movie that's not a sports movie as well.
Is it because of the people that you were working with, or just the whole experience?
The whole experience. I mean, I think most of it has to do with the wide open potential in front of me at that time. You know, like I was a kid, and I was like, things were happening in my life that were really exciting, and coming from where I came from, really unlikely. You know, I probably should have been either, you know, my mom thought, you know, to just assumed I'd go work at Otis Elevators or something like that, or go to jail. You know, that's another.
Those are your two opportunities. That was a real possibility.
Yeah, that was one or the other. But you know, I got myself into a really great program called Educational Opportunity Program, which I found, you know, for underprivileged kids. I got into college. I was a theater major at the State University of New York at Albany, which was a great place for me to learn theater and acting, and you know, out of that I moved to New York, and suddenly here I am on a big movie set, and it's just pure fantasy, fun, and so I look back on that with great fondness. But I think, we talk about the Jimmy Show. For me, that was a great achievement for me because, not only writing really tough material and directing it, but also acting in that role myself. That was a real challenge that I look back on that film, and I'm really proud of that film.
Would you like to do more acting in your own films? I
would never do it again.
No, you wouldn't. It's too hard to
it's just
bounce
not a
back
good
and
idea.
forth. Oh.
Yeah, I don't, maybe in a small role, but you can't, in a big, challenging, difficult role like that, you're just working against yourself, and, things get lost. You have to be in too many places at the same time. So I probably should have done one or the other, but I think that's why
That's
I'm
how you
so
learn
proud.
too. Yeah.
But for me, that movie's it's successful.
Who do you look back in life as a person who was, say, you're a mentor, somebody who inspired you, somebody, whether it be in school, whether it be that gentleman that you worked with at the hotel? Who do you think was like
Mrs. Williams, my guidance counselor at Grant Junior High, at Henniger High rather. She, as I talked about educational opportunity program, I was going nowhere in my life as a 17-year-old senior in high school. I was, I knew that I loved perform. I was outgoing, and I knew, and I was always writing short stories, essays, and stuff like that. But I was never doing anything with them. I had the potential to be a good student, but I just didn't think enough about me, myself, self-worth wise, to put the effort in. I just didn't see it going anywhere, and I had really troubled home life, and I was on a collision course, honestly, with jail or divorce. And this woman, who was my guidance counselor, she said, you need to fill out the paperwork and get yourself in this program because you need to go to college. You have to go to college. And I said, what am I? She said, you can be a theater major, because I'd done one school plays. I had a great time, and it was one of the few periods of time where I wasn't in trouble. I did that, and so that she said, do that. I said, all right, I'll do that, and I did that, and I applied, and I got in. I went up there, and that began my whole life. And years later, I think in Syracuse, where I'm from, it was a kind of a fundraiser for the Landmark Theater in town. They would do did a Syracuse Walk of Fame, and they invited me up to put my star on the Syracuse Walk of Fame.
Nice.
And Grace Jones and Rod Sterling's daughter what came up there. I think now there's a bus stop on top of my star. But anyway, that's not the point.
Hey, at least they stopped there.
Yes,
okay. That's what they stopped.
Yeah, but people are just stepping on it. There's urine on it. I go up there every 6 months to clean it. It's just a mess. But at that ceremony, and I remember I was doing when they invited me up there to do the ceremony. Pulp Fiction was playing at the New York Film Festival, but I wanted to go up there to get this, because I wanted my mom, or I just, because, and I had been actually in trouble with the police on that very block where my star was famous. And I, from that theater, I don't go and get into too much in details.
No, go ahead.
But I, there's somewhere, there's somebody who saw me.
Shot you like that?
What the?
There's a perp walk.
Right there. So I
Frank.
I got to go up there. I got to do this. This is I got to come. I have to. This is there's something cathartic in this. I have to go, and at the time I was doing this play, Veins and Thumbtacks, which later became the Jimmy Show, and Ethan Hawke had directed the play. And
is that before
Chelsea
you?
Walls
Is that why you
connection.
became friends, or had you been friends before?
We became friends. We did a movie together called The Midnight Clear in the early '90s, which was an early independent film before the days of independent films. Directed by Keith Gordon. It was Peter Berg, Ethan Hawke, Kevin Dillon, Gary Sinise, and me. And we played it was based on a William Wharton novel, Midnight Clear. Great story. Great movie.
Midnight Clear. Look it up.
Yeah, it's a really good. If you can find it. It's a really good movie. Anyway, that's where Ethan and I met. And when we met on that movie, we said to each other, let's stay in touch. Let's really, let's do that. And we came back to New York, and we did keep in touch, because often we say, let's keep in touch. You never see each other again, but we did, and we made the the decision we were going to remain friends, because we all became very good friends on that movie, and we started a theater group together, and Veins and Thumbtacks came out of that play. But anyway, we were doing that play, and we were so tight knit on this play where I was playing the stand up comic. That I said, we all decided to go up there together. So rented a van. We drove up there together. Jason Blum, you may know, he's a guy. He runs Blumhouse. But he's an executive
producer, right?
Yeah, he's a billionaire.
Insidious and
Blumhouse, Paranormal.
Whiplash.
He was actually part of that theater company as well. He was one of our close friends, and we all went up to Syracuse together for my Walk of Fame. And we stayed at the Embassy Suites, and they didn't have any rooms because we didn't make a reservation. And we stayed in a conference room. We talked them into giving us a conference room. We played quarters all night.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
And yeah, it was a wonderful experience. The reason I'm telling you the story is because the guidance counselor who began really, I credit this woman, Mrs. Williams, with starting my life as a human being. I'm giving this speech and I'm trying to be, clever and funny, and I look out and I see this woman sitting there at the Walk of Fame, sitting, and there's my family's there too. They're all drunk, and then I see her, and she's sitting there, and she was this really African American woman, tall,
Just like
really
Eleanor,
tall.
you didn't expect to see her.
I didn't exactly. Well, there you go. It all comes back. But
Yeah.
she's this big, it's like 6 foot tall woman, and she's sitting in the chair and very regal, and it's looking exactly like she did when she sat in her little office. And I just lost it, man. Because I completely had forgotten this woman existed,
Right.
But she was such an important part of my life, and there she was, and I became like a puddle, and I couldn't finish the speech, and I didn't want to embarrass her.
Right.
But I said, I said something very important here, and I had told her to stand up, but or asked her to stand up, and it was a remarkable thing, and I'm not sure why I even began the story. What was the
The
pills are wearing off, and I'm just going.
Sorry, no, I asked about who inspiration.
Oh, there you go. Well, there was a point to that story. So so she was, and
Who cares? It was a great story.
I'm not sure. I haven't seen her since that day, and she was probably, that was 1994, and she was retired, well retired then. She was like in her 70s. So, if she's probably sitting in a retirement home in Syracuse. She's probably sitting there right now. Like, you ain't talking about me, not me. And then her husband will say, ah.
So what?
What the hell did I do?
What did I do?
Look what I unleashed on the
Campbell's.
world.
I asked for Campbell soup.
So why is your friend Blumhouse giving all these roles to Mr. Hawk? There, you should be floating you some, why not?
From your to God's ear, however that saying goes.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
I don't know, but he and I are still, Jason and I are still really good friends, and he's, I mean, it's amazing what he's built. He's built an empire. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and
Paranormal Activity is the scariest movie I've ever seen in my life. I couldn't sleep for a month after I refused. I'm never going to see another scary movie.
Well,
I had to keep all the lights on.
You made this circle, so Keith Gordon,
Yeah.
Christine Jaws 2, he goes on to become a director,
Yeah.
relatively successful. Ethan Hawke continues to act. He directed Chelsea Walls.
Right.
I was at Lionsgate at the time of that, which
his
you were in as
documentary
well,
just,
and he's doing well.
his documentary just opened.
What an amazing circle
Yeah,
of talent and collaboration.
Yeah. Well, that was
so
a great period of time, because we were really in that group that we formed was a real collaborative group. It didn't last long, but we did a lot of good work. We did 3 what we called seasons. I wrote 3 plays, but Veins and Thumbtacks came out of that, and it became a feature for me. And Robert John Ledford was a part of that. Callista Flockhart, Steve Zahn was a part of that. It was called Malapart Theater, was what we called it, and Josh Hamilton, and there was a lot of great people involved. Kenny Lonergan, I'm forgetting, a lot of people. We had a great group, and we all worked together. I would direct, he would direct. People, we did different people from different areas did different things, and so it was really fun.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, we got to wrap this up, but I wanted to ask about what's next for you. I know you're still promoting this. Obviously, it premiered March 13th in theaters. Is that correct?
It opens March 20th in LA.
In LA.
And
today?
And it's opening in bits and pieces all over theatrically all over the country. You can check. It's playing in cities. You can check your listings and see if it's playing in a theater near you. I know it's opening all over the place. And April 21st, it'll be video on demand and DVD and digital and all that stuff. So that's when you can really get your hands on it and see it.
And we can say, I won't speak for you, but a very sweet, charming film that has a really sweet story behind it. I got sucked into it. The pacing was refreshing in this day and age. Like, I love all kinds of movies, big, small. But sometimes, we'll always complain, like, why don't you just stay there for a little bit longer? Let the dialogue do its thing, what it's supposed to do. You crafted and told a very fine story, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
If they rent a DVD, I'll come to their house and do a commentary.
Running commentary?
I'm one of the few directors that still does a live commentary. I'll do
Which
that.
is great.
I'll just sit anywhere you want me to sit in your house and speak.
Clothed or unclothed? I'm just curious.
It all depends. It all depends on people and how much money they have to spend. But I will sit just quietly in the corner and just talk. In this shot, we did twice.
Have you done that for it yet? Have you done it? Not a live one. I'm just thinking, have you done it for you? You're not going to do it.
They're not going to. Yeah, it's a low budget operation, and I'm not sure that that's again like that used to be a thing, but I think the whole DVD thing is such a small element.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Again, being a film fan myself, this is another thing I should say that I've noticed in Blu-rays now. Listen, one of the reasons why I bought Laserdisc was to hear commentary and get these special features.
Yeah.
Now special features seem to be just going away, and it's like I'm not getting these great documentaries.
I did talk them into putting a couple of extras on it. There's a really funny,
like that alternate ending that you shot of
that'd be great. But like Jim Henson puppets would be funny. But no, there's a really funny interview that I did at some film. I think it might have been the Hamptons Film Festival with this really funny like public access woman who just said, could I do, because it was like a press junket with all the filmmakers. She said, could I talk to you? She had no idea who I was. I ended up sitting down with her. I really honestly didn't think the film was, the camera was on, because she was just talking to me. Her name was Fran, and she said, so what are you doing here? And she was like, and my kids came on. I brought my kids. I said, come on in. And it's a really long, rambling, pointless interview. That's going to be on I said, you got to put that on there.
That's great.
And you convinced him to do that?
I don't know how.
Wow.
This is how it all goes. They won't. They said, okay, we'll put that on.
So,
I do love serious films like this, and some of the simplest movies are some of the best movies out there that I think more people should see. I absolutely love this movie. I watched it twice, and I think it was fantastic. And so my last question for you, out of all the films that you've directed or you've written or acted in, what do you take out of them, or what do you want other people to take out of them?
For me, I think that's a good question. I think movies should be when you're sitting watching a movie, there should be some mirror. It's like, what can you take from it that would affect your own life? How like we talked about Last Picture Show or Paper Moon or any movies we've talked about. They've had some significance for me personally, and help me to understand my own existence and my own journey in this world. And that's what great books, great paintings, great movies, that's what movies should and can and have done. It's becoming more and more, I feel, not to get on the soapbox, but I feel like it's become a lost art. I search for things that are going to affect me personally, whether documentaries, small film, independent films, whatever. I want to be moved. I want to learn something about answers that basic life answers, and I think you can find in movies you can find those, and I think that like Sunday Like Rain, there's a little bit of people's own life in there somewhere, and that's what I look for in a movie. That's what I look if I'm watching it or whatever, and I try to I want to be not only entertained, but I want to see a depiction of real life. And that's what I want. There's great action movies. With kids, I never used to go to see like action, adventure, or fantasy movies, but my kids love them, you know, and so they're, you know, but I love movies that talk about real life.
Yeah.
Well, this certainly succeeds in that arena.
And we know that you have to drive back to Connecticut.
That's true.
Yeah, it's going to take.
Get going.
And I drive about 15 miles an hour. I'll be back. For those of you,
That's you that I was stuck behind on the 405.
That's why he only makes 4 movies so
I'll be
far.
back. I'll be back. Honey, I'll be home by Memorial Day.
Yeah, that's right. Well, congratulations on your efforts. We applaud not only the effort but the result. So congratulations on that.
It's great talking to you guys.
And I'm hoping that you're finding the pride in it that you should from the work that you've given forth. So,
Thank you. That means a lot to
We
me.
appreciate your time and coming.
Yes, again, especially for that. Thank you so
Very
much.
special guest this year.
Go see the movie.
Thank
Tweet
you
it
so
out. Let everybody else know where they can find it. And
We're on Facebook,
there you
Twitter, Instagram, everything. Frank, the Like Sunday Like Rain movie, the Frank Whaley on Twitter.
There you go.
I'll tweet it out to my 5 followers.
There you go. Nicely done. So we will tweet it here. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Like
Thank
Sunday, like rain. You'll like the movie.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Love it.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie.